Welcome back to the Family Ties podcast. I'm Julia Avery, and this is my sister and co-host, Kelly Ritchie.
Hi, you all. Kelly here. Thank you for joining us again today. We really appreciate it. We're excited to have you joining us.
Yes.
Before we get started, though, Julia, I would like to invite each and every one of our listeners or watchers to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, and share your thoughts and comments with us.
Also, for those of us that listen to us via our podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you find your pods. We welcome your feedback as well as your suggestions and case recommendations. So please post away.
Absolutely. So, Julia, we're doing things a little bit different today. We're trying to kind of bring you guys along with some visuals as well as the information on this case. So Julia's going to introduce what we're talking about today, and I'm going to try very hard with my minimal tech abilities to bring you guys along visually as well. So let's see here. Julia, do you want to bring us into what we're talking about today?
Yes. So today's case is in regards to Maxwell Schollenberger. He was a 12-year-old boy found weighing under 50 pounds, was dead and naked, lying in his own feces by authorities on May 26th of 2020. So this is very recent.
Mm-hmm.
He was malnourished and starving and was held captive for years in a locked room. He was never allowed out and was kept separate from the rest of his siblings. He could not see inside or outside the room because the window in there was shuttered and nailed shut, and there were curtains inside. So covering anything nobody could see in, nobody could see out. There were bolts and locks on his door to keep him inside, and the room was devoid of any toys or furniture with exception to the bed. Reports indicate that Maxwell hadn't seen a doctor in over 10 years, so he was 2 years old the last time he was seen by a doctor. Maxwell was robbed of an education, was kept out of school. He was obviously robbed of love and affection or any human connection. He only knew sadness, filth, hunger, and thirst. There are so many ways to describe this crime. The words that come to mind are neglect, torture, starvation, withholding water, physical abuse, and absolutely inhumane conditions. So,
yeah. So on that note, this brings us to our second point. So the cause of death was homicide, obviously. So being found naked on his bed on the second floor of their house. Maxwell and the bed were completely covered in his feces. And there were clear claw marks in the bedding from his struggle. So it was not, it was pretty violent. This whole little boy's life was full of violence and sadness. The medical examiner revealed that Maxwell was severely malnourished, had very little muscle mass, and was a mere 47.5 pounds. Just think about that for a second. 12-year-olds, they should definitely weigh more than that. So to put this in perspective, the average weight and height for a 12-year-old male is around 88 pounds and 58.7 inches tall. He was underweight and under height. He died as a result of blunt force trauma to the head and body, along with severe malnutrition. There was a plastic cup by his bed when he was found that held a mere inch of water. Julia, do you want to walk us into where this took place?
Yeah, so this happens to be the part that bothers me the most. So they were located in historic Annville, Pennsylvania, on South White Oak Street. They lived in a 2-story home very near schools, town, like downtown, and other neighbors, like literally neighbors right next door. I mean, screams can be heard. So many things can be heard. I mean,
yeah. I mean, look at that. They're right on the road. They're right on the main road there.
It's a good sized home. It's got a good sized backyard. It's very close to like all the hustle and bustle of the town. Like, you know, when you look on the Google Maps, like you see the cars right there driving past right in front. Like it's so close. And he just to know that someone can just pass by that closely to something so horrific going on and have no idea. And if he knew how close he was to outside help, but he just couldn't reach them, that is what absolutely bothers me the most about this whole thing, is just how close he was.
Yeah. And not just that. So let's discuss the other kids in the home. While the number of children who lived in the household is currently unspecified, we'll show you a photo in a bit that kind of maybe indicates how many people might have been living there at one time. But one article states that Max would be raised with Schollenberger's 2 older children from other relationships and 3 children Mauer and Schollenberger had together, which indicates 5 or so children. So the biological children of Scott and Kimberly were well cared for and healthy. It's unclear how many children had been living there, but several other kids who lived in the home, both from Maurer's previous relationship and biological children from Schollenberger and Maurer appeared to be well adjusted and healthy, the district attorney office reports. The other children in the house reported that Scott refused to let Maxwell out of the room/prison, and that the couple would go into the boys' room and they would hear screaming and crying. Some of the children even claimed to have had no knowledge of Maxwell's existence. So, Julia, I'm going to let you describe this next point. So, and go into the charges as well. So, tell us who we're talking about as far as our perpetrators here, and you know, what's the detail? What's the scoop?
So, Maxwell's dad, Scott, at the time all this went down, was 42 years old. His criminal history is fairly just kind of normal, with the exception of, you know, traffic and abandoning vehicles on the side of the highway. And now he's added to the list: criminal homicide and endangering welfare of children, parents, guardian, other commits offense from May 2020, and simple assault after the murder in July 2020. So after looking at his social media, it looks like he had other biological children with Kimberly, the stepmother. The investigation also revealed that Schollenberger expressed intense frustration towards the child victim, Maxwell, and that he had indicated to other individuals that he was afraid of hurting him. Some of the documents state. So then
what we're looking at here is Schollenberger on the left and then Mauer on the right. So his biological father is on the left and his stepmother on the right.
Yeah. So the charges against the couple, they both face charges of criminal homicide, conspiracy to commit criminal homicide, endangering the welfare of children, and criminal conspiracy to endanger the welfare of children. The couple remained in Lebanon County Prison on Monday without bail, awaiting a preliminary hearing on September 24th before District Judge John W. Ditzler, according to the online court dockets. So
I would like to kind of, I'm going to hopefully try and do some more digging and see what transpired with the September hearings. because at this point there's really no news or indication of what exactly came out of that.
It's hard with these more recent cases that deal with children because there's a lot of stuff that seems to be confidential or hidden from the public.
Anytime it involves children, it's very difficult to get your hands on the information over what's going on with proceedings and the case.
And we've talked about it before where to me, I think it does more damage than good. I understand the importance of keeping things with children confidential. However, when there are so many of these things happening all the time, I think it is a disservice to them in the end because, people are ignorant.
Oh, for sure.
Of what's going on. And that's why, a lot of people are kind of out of the loop and don't realize all of the things that are happening. So it is by hiding it and protecting their privacy and keeping it confidential, what this ends up doing is just, it's almost like a cover up. Yeah. I know that's not the way it is intended, but that is just the way it comes across in the end when so many people have no idea how many terrible things are happening, how the thousands of children that are impacted because this stuff isn't exposed enough, so
yeah,
two-way street.
So let's briefly talk about the mother, the biological mother. Her name is Sarah Kuhn. She lost custody of Maxwell when he was 3 years old, and reportedly the last time she saw him alive was when he was 3. The last thing Maxwell asked her was, "You're still my mommy, right?" Which breaks my heart. She said she believed Maxwell was in good hands and that Scott was a good father, even though their relationship had been deteriorating. Lots of jealousy involved here. When Maxwell returned home to Scott one night from being with Sarah, he was referring to Sarah's boyfriend as daddy, and this threw Scott into an absolute rage. So he's also a child, literally, this man. When Maxwell came down with the chickenpox, Sarah canceled a planned visit with Maxwell, not wanting to expose her new baby to the virus. Just let me insert here. The fact that parents who've had children, who can't take care of children and have to have someone else take care of them, the fact that we see this happen over and over again, that the cycle is that people continue to have children even when they're like having to adopt them out.
And then somehow they're able to keep them.
And they're able to at least keep having children. I heard, I'm not even going to go into how I feel on that. That's a separate topic for another time. But I just am amazed. So she couldn't take care of Maxwell, but here's a new baby for her to royally screw up their lives as well. Both parents here.
But it seems like she has custody of the second one.
Well, yes, but that's not Scott's child at this point. So I don't know what that situation is on that side. But
no, I just think it's interesting how you're not qualified to be a parent for one, but somehow you are for the other.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that as a nation, we have the right to say, you're not allowed to have children or to in sterilize people. That is not what I'm suggesting at all.
It's just that there obviously needs to be a solution, but we just don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the solution is just as problematic as the problem itself. And so it's just like, I feel like there has to be something in place to protect future kids from this kind of abuse. But I don't know what the answer is to that in our judicial system. I'm not even going to pretend to know. But so she didn't want to expose her new baby to the virus. And after this, Scott cut her off from Maxwell entirely. Sarah would never see Maxwell again. She initially fought for Max, but was cut off by the courts this time after failure to pay child support. So I'm sure this new baby is going to have a fantastic life too. When an investigator called her on June 10th to ask her some questions, she was informed that her son was dead. The investigator was unable to give her the cause of death or total details because the investigation was still being conducted in the 15 days after his death. They told me he had already been cremated. I didn't get to see my baby one last time, Kuhn said. The last image I have of him is a picture on some other woman's Facebook page when he was maybe 5. It's a picture of them as a family with all 3 of their children in the foreground with Maxwell in the back, like an afterthought. And we already showed you that image with the other kids blurred out just to protect their identities. You know, they've survived this and they already have a tough road ahead of them of recovery and healing. Yeah. So we don't want to exploit any of their faces. So incredibly, Scott and Kimberly spent the entire summer out free while the investigation was being conducted on this. That's another little side note. So
I cannot. There's the amount of evidence against them is just insurmountable. Like how did that happen? Like the kid is found dead in, like, he's been starved. Water has been kept from him and he's like been thoroughly beaten. What part of that seems accidental or like, well, we just need to wait until we have all of the facts? It's like they know the who and they know the who. It's not like a murder mystery where it's like, I don't know who done it. It could have been anyone. The suspect's range is huge. It's like, no, they had bolted him in their own home. They were the only known and available perpetrators. Okay. Like,
I just don't understand how, okay, if they are allowed to be out free, you know, while the investigation is being conducted, why on earth would they be allowed to keep the kids? Because they were able to keep their other 3 remaining children. So life just went on for them as normal. This is astounding to me. Okay. All right. So according to an article titled Max Schollenberger's Mother, I thought Maxwell was in good hands, by Kim Strong of the Lebanon Daily News. It says that during that time, Schollenberger started talking to Kuhn, initially messaging her on Facebook, eventually spending hours on the phone with her. This was after Maxwell was found dead. He was reaching out to her more. And I mean, could that be guilt? Could it be him trying to cover up? I mean, what's the reason? Or is he wanting to experience the pain she's in due to his own sadistic pleasure? Like these are, of course, questions. So he was telling her that he had nothing to do with this. Sarah had still not been told of the long-term torture Max had endured and what had killed him. He did tell me that the coroner had slipped a detail to him that Max had a fractured ocular socket. I thought maybe someone hit him. Okay. So it was a detail that Schollenberger clung to, blaming Kimberly Mauer for his death, saying that she would get mad when Schollenberger spent time with Max. So he's feeding her this story that, it's the jealous wife who's doing this. He had no idea of any of it.
This is like damage control.
Yeah.
Almost. He's trying to create a narrative that might help him out in court.
Yeah. She said, I could tell he was digging for some sort of forgiveness. But Sarah couldn't understand why, if Max was in danger, that Schollenberger didn't contact her and offer her custody. I said, I hold you both responsible for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was also interviewed. Sarah was interviewed by Suffer the Little Children podcast, which is on episode 32, which I would highly recommend everyone go listen to. It's a wonderful podcast, and we hope to be kind of teaming up with them in the future. But regardless of that, Sarah met Scott in her 20s when she started working at Ruby Tuesdays in Lebanon. He worked in the kitchen. They started dating, and she was pregnant with Maxwell within 3 months. Do you want to pick it up from there, Julia?
Sure. So in the same article, Kuhn and her son moved in with a relative. When Max was just 2, Schollenberger walked into the house and took the boy. Kuhn said that someone had led Schollenberger to believe she was being irresponsible. She said,
could be fair.
Could be fair. But the thing is, like, if he was able to do that then he was definitely able to do that with the next lady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. True.
You know, so he can't try to act like
he's
there
helpless.
was nothing he could do, you know, because he's done it once before when it was necessary, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway, so she, a quote from her, she said, "That was the beginning of the end for me. She lost her job, then started self-harming and considered ending her life. She remembered that she had started over before and would again. It took time, but she got into a woman's shelter in Lebanon, by this time pregnant with Max's younger half-brother. She couldn't return to Lebanon because of the warrant out for her arrest due to outstanding child support, fees unpaid and accruing." So drugs, women's shelter, self-harming, financial troubles, they're kind of part of the reason that it seems she lost custody. We did find her social media, and one of the likes that were public on her page was that she likes the Suffer the Little Children podcast. So it's another one of those parents outside of the situation that seems because of their firsthand experience, they're now interested in the issue and how it affects other children. So that's what hit me.
Yeah.
You know.
Would you mind walking us through this next bit and just kind of go on until we get to, the end of discussing the home?
Yeah. So the impacts of Maxwell's death on the officers involved in the public community. Let's see here. Who is this quote from? Is this from his attorney? All right.
I believe so.
Okay. So today marks the first step in the long path of justice for this little boy. Max Schollenberger existed. I will not call this living. In a state of perpetual suffering. He existed in the most egregious and foul of conditions. He remained starved, locked away, and isolated until his killing. This child never looked forward to his first day of school, lit candles on a birthday cake, or experienced the unconditional love of family. This was said by the district attorney, according to Fox 43 News.
Look at that little sweet face, though.
He's just such a cutie.
I mean, I don't care. Well, maybe even if your kid isn't cute, like I don't care. That never excuses behavior like that. But like, how could you do that?
The cutie.
Why? What?
Just so precious. Like.
So let's just also point out, Julia, that okay. Scott went to Sarah's to remove this kid from a situation that was like unsafe or whatever. And then he locks him in a room for years and intentionally starves, beats, tortures this little child. So the question is what is, I mean, there's never a good enough reason to explain why someone would do this, but I just want to know why you would exert your energy to make a young life so miserable. Like, what is that doing for you? Like, I want to know the psychology behind, like, what is this doing to improve your life? I mean, because obviously you get some sick benefit from it. I mean, we as humans tend to do things for reasons that benefit us in some way. So what's your secondary benefit here for holding this child captive and making his life a living misery? What did the kid do?
I sort of think that he held on to him because, once he had taken him from Sarah, he, and there was also obviously jealousy involved at the beginning, when Maxwell had made comments about Sarah's boyfriend. So his thing was control. He needed control. And so putting him in that room, it wasn't necessarily about his safety. To me, it was just needing to be the one who had control. And if it was for his safety, he probably would have tried to give him back to Sarah if his new girlfriend had such a problem with him. Mm-hmm. So I think it was just all about having to have control. I think that's all it was, And
I mean, at this point, all we can do is just do pure conjecture, right? So according to another recent article, the Lebanon Child Abuse Advocates Aiming for Broader Awareness in Wake of Heartbreaking Cases by Matthew Toth for the Lebanon Daily News. He reports that local community groups are hoping to answer some of those questions this month with the Pinwheel Project. I recently shared, because April was Child Abuse Awareness Month, and so I posted a link to the Pinwheel Project, which you can get involved in no matter what state you are in. It's mainly they set out pinwheels, one pinwheel for each child in their town or their area that, was a victim, either died or was a tragic victim of abuse or neglect. So it's a way to educate residents on the signs of abuse and what they can do about it. So it is important that we all get involved with things of this nature. But Alyssa Pareto, Sexual Assault Resource and Counseling Center of Lebanon, she's the president there. She said the goal is to saturate the community with information about child abuse, its impact, and what the community can do about it. So, like we always like to state, this is a community issue. This is something that we as citizens should be involved in. This is something that we should care about. Just think about my own street. I think about it all the time. Just the 80-something homes or 60 plus on my street alone with children. How many of those children are being abused or neglected? And what am I doing to pay attention? And when I see children, make a mental note of what I think their situation is like, being more aware, paying attention. Bless you. So she says that if we can build a more supportive and trauma-informed community that knows what to do, that isn't afraid to act on behalf of the safety of children and supportive families, we are all going to be in a better place and feel like we can do something, she said. SARCC and Lebanon Children and Youth Services are hosting training events for community members and professionals on recognizing and reporting child abuse. This is great.
I want to take some of those. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Let's start like a challenge. We'll right now we'll have the challenge between me and Julia to get involved. So we're going to look into our own communities resources on this and see what we can do to take some courses. That way we can share with you what we learn. So my challenge is to you, Julia, which one of us is going to be the first one to come back and have successfully done something. So to be continued. So it's about empowering and educating, and that's important. So this says that they host the events for community members and professionals for recognizing the signs of child abuse. And the United Way Community Connections will also be hosting live stream discussions Fridays at noon on Facebook starting April 2nd. So this past April, they just started doing these live streams. Maybe we look into that. we'll share with you what we find. Julia, make a little written note for us to check back on that.
Okay.
Because that's important. You know, if we don't have to leave our homes and we can join a live stream and learn, why the heck not? This is our responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's more to child abuse than just making a report or bringing an investigation. You also need to build a supportive response for families so that we can prevent abuse from happening in the first place. Pareto says, we want folks in our community to feel like they have the power to do something, and who and how to contact to help the family get connected and supported when something happens. An Annville resident, Pareto, said it was heartbreaking to see the big child abuse cases coming out of the area. And she's right to be alarmed, because in February, I believe of the same year, so February of 2020, prosecutors filed 20 felony charges against Stephanie Angeletta Duncan, 42 years old, and her husband, Robert John Duncan, 44, of the 2700 block of Cedar Run Road, which is extremely close by. The Duncans' calculated and prolonged abuse included physical punishment, depriving the children of food and water, heat, and bathroom privileges, and trying to cover up their crimes, according to prosecutors. So
we also covered a case in
we
Annville.
covered this. This is the one, the Duncans. This is exactly the case. So, and they live very close by to this. So in the same region within,
except theirs was a little bit more off the road, just a little bit. It wasn't like directly in the hustle and bustle.
Yeah. But, I mean, the Duncan's house is less than 3 miles from the Schollenberger home.
Yeah.
Just pointing that out. And Julia, I don't remember the episode number of that, but if you want to go back in our catalogs and listen to that, we talk about the 5 Duncan children that were abused and just severely tragic. But I think it's important that we know about these things and we share them. And I want everyone to get educated and uncomfortable enough to do something. So, Julie, would you like to finish this one up?
Absolutely. So, Pareto also said that to know that we as community members can do something about it goes a really long way in helping our community to heal from these big cases. She said the city of Lebanon, Annville Township, Myerstown, and Palmyra have been identified in the United Way's Alice report as at the highest risk of child abuse based on poverty and survivor level income households. So that's great. So again, that kind of stuff doesn't happen unless there's awareness.
Exactly.
So, we're posting 200 pinwheels in each of the communities and signs talking about the number of children that were impacted in 2020.
200 pinwheels in their area alone.
And that is just in 1 year. The year of 2020.
I wonder here's the thing is I wonder what percentage of their community. So like, where are they drawing the boundaries? What is this measuring? Like, where do those 200 children fall? Is it in the Annville Township area? Is it just in so it looks like,
is it by county?
So they're saying that the city of Lebanon, Annville Township, Myerstown, and Palmyra have been identified as the highest risk of child abuse. So are those the communities that they're including in that 200? Mind blowing, because that's regardless if it's if it's just the township or if it's all of those communities, regardless, that's insanely high. So that would probably, if we had an accurate measure of each and every community or county, our actual rates of abuse survivors would be, or even deaths would go up exponentially. So we've shared with you before that there's between 4 to 7 children that die every single day due to child abuse and neglect. That's just what's been reported. And then during 2020 with COVID, I think that number has shot up, and who knows how long it'll be until we have an accurate picture of what that is.
Yeah.
Because abuse happens in isolation. Clearly, all these situations are, they're isolating the child from the public, from their community. And to cover up this abuse. So who knows how many other uncharted cases that we just don't know about due to 2020. It breaks my heart just to think about it. Anyways, Julia, take it away.
It's going to take years before we have any idea of the magnitude of that.
Yeah.
From last year. So residents of that area, the Annville and Lebanon area, can learn more about the Lebanon County Pinwheel Project events at the event's Facebook page.
We'll link that.
Yeah. The Department of Human Services operates a 24/7 hotline about the welfare of a child and to report suspected child abuse. Childline can be reached at 800-932-0313.
I'll repeat that. They can be reached at 800-932-0313. So, Julie and I would like to thank you for joining us for today's episode. We urge you all to donate or join local causes in your communities that are working to fight for better children's rights. If you don't know where to start, please visit our website for resources and click on the donate page where we have links to some of our favorite child advocacy programs such as NCAN, like End Child Abuse Now, and the Coalition for Responsible Home Education.
Yeah. So this is all of our responsibilities. Again, it is, like Kelly said, it's a community thing. It's all of our responsibilities to stand up for the rights and lives of children everywhere. This is a fight that has absolutely nothing to do with politics, with partisan politics. It's simply the right for children to be safe, loved, cared for. Anyway, so thank you and join the family.